You can hear me now? Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. I want to welcome you all for coming here. And we are very excited to share with you some of the advances that have taken place in Alzheimer's and some very important areas of research that are being done right here at UW-Madison. So we have a full agenda for you. And usually they give me 5 minutes because they know this guy will go on for 2 hours. But I will keep up my promise. So what I thought that before I talk about anything in detail, let me touch about a breakthrough news that many of you might have heard yesterday. Raise your hands. How many of you either heard yesterday or today a new medication that has come out for Alzheimer's disease? And okay, thank you. So I thought maybe the very first thing to do is to just address this new finding that has come out. So there is a company called Biogen, and Biogen is one of the pharmaceutical companies that for many years has been doing research in Alzheimer's disease, and they wanted to find some effective treatments for the disease. So over the past decade or 15 years, multiple trials have been done with all kinds of medications, and unfortunately, all of those trials, at least till now, had failed in people with Alzheimer's disease. But Biogen sponsored a medication called Aducanumab. I got it right. I've been practicing since yesterday, actually. Aducanumab is a medication that is given through intravenous infusion into your arm. It's given once a month, and it is an antibody that goes to the brain, and then it eats away that amyloid protein that we know gets deposited in people with Alzheimer's disease. So the theory was you give this medication as an infusion, it goes to the brain, and it clears the brain of this amyloid protein. And then the hope was that as we do that, perhaps over time the person's symptoms of Alzheimer's will improve. So they did this study for about a few years worldwide, and they did an initial analysis end of last year, and then they announced around springtime this year that the results of the initial analysis was negative with this medication, that it did not work. So they stopped all the trials worldwide with this Aducanumab. However, what happened a few months later, that they got some more data of people who were still in the trial, and when they reanalyzed the data, they found, wow, actually this medication works. So they found that people who were in the trial, about 2,000 of them actually participated in the trial, and they found that there were improvements in their memory, there were some improvements in their day-to-day function, and also the amount of amyloid in their brain had really come down with this medication. So this is a very exciting finding in many ways. So they're going to approach FDA and try and get approval for this medication so that they can use it to treat patients who have Alzheimer's disease. Now, it remains to be seen if the FDA actually approved this medication. And it is a little strange that initially the analysis was negative, and then as they got data from a few more hundred people, they found this exciting result. So I think this is, for the first time in 16 years, that since approval of Aricept, raise your hands, many of you have heard of Aricept, the medication that is approved by the FDA, that we use for many years for treatment of Alzheimer's disease. For the past 16 years, no new medication had been approved. Now, there is a chance that Aducanumab may get approved by FDA, and so we're going to keep our fingers crossed. But I think this is another testament and a proof that as we do research in this, in this disease, we are one day going to indeed find a very effective treatment, new ways to prevent the disease, and one day a cure. As you know, there are no shortcuts to research. All the diseases we have controlled so far, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, is the result of decades of research on people with that disease. And now we are seeing some exciting results for Alzheimer's disease. So again, thanks for supporting. I know many of you are a part of the studies that are going on here, and he is a living testament that as we continue research, we will one day find treatment and cure for the disease. So very exciting result. We'll keep our fingers crossed and hope that the FDA is going to approve this medication. So with that, I want to introduce you the Wisconsin Alzheimer's Disease Research Center that Carol mentioned. As you know, about 10 years ago, the National Institutes of Health which is the federal agency that funds medical research throughout the United States and actually outside the United States, in Europe and many other parts of the world, they gave us a grant to designate us as one of the centers of excellence in Alzheimer's research. In the United States, there are only 32 medical schools out of 148 medical schools that have got this designation of excellence in Alzheimer's research. And we are very fortunate to have that designation for the past 10 years. And earlier this year, in April of this year, they gave us money for another 5 years to continue with that designation and continue with research right here at UW-Madison. So that is very exciting. So what the ADRC does, it actually supports a number of studies. In fact, there are dozens of studies that are ongoing here, over 50 or so at any one time. And we're trying to find new treatments for the disease. We're trying to find what causes the disease. And we're doing all kinds of research, not only in people with Alzheimer's disease, but those who are at risk for the disease, and also people of different race and ethnicity, how Alzheimer's might differ between races and ethnicities. And in fact, today the keynote speaker today will highlight some of very interesting findings that have come out in Native Indian population. And our center is very focused in that area as well. Now, the NIH has received increasing support from the US Congress over the last 4 or 5 years, because it is clear to us that this country is facing an epidemic and a real crisis of the number of people who are being diagnosed with this disease. So a lot of money is coming from the Congress to NIH, and we are lucky to get a good lot of that money right here through competition that University of Wisconsin has received federal grants from NIH, and also there are a number of foundations. Alzheimer's Foundation is one of them, and many other foundations that support research nationwide and internationally, and donations from people like you who really, really support research for Alzheimer's disease. So the ADRC here is very prominent, is one of the very highly ranked centers in the country, and is renowned internationally also for doing all kinds of research in Alzheimer's disease. Now, among the dozens of studies that we do here, just a few examples of some of the treatment studies we are doing. One of them is known as the MIND study. Believe it or not, MIND is actually using a nicotine patch to see if nicotine can actually improve people who have a diagnosis of mild cognitive impairment. Now, that doesn't mean you go back and start smoking tonight, but actually, there's some evidence that nicotine can activate certain parts of the brain which are impaired in Alzheimer's disease, and they help with memory. So it remains to be seen that if nicotine is given through a patch, skin patch, does it actually improve people with MCI and their memory? And the study is still ongoing. The other example is the Connectome study. Connectome is a brain imaging study where we're trying to find how different networks and parts of the brain communicate with each other and how they get impaired as we develop Alzheimer's disease. So this is a very special brain imaging study. Dr. Barb Benlin is here, and Dr. Sterling Johnson, and many others are involved with this study. It's a national study. We are one of the prominent sites for this study, and we are still enrolling people for that study. Another study is the Ambition study. Again, Dr. Benlin is the principal investigator for this study. What this study is doing is actually giving medication or forms where microbes are given to people through oral route. Now, there's increasing evidence through Dr. Benlin's work and other people's work that bacteria and microbes in our gut, we all have them from the moment we are born, they may have some role in Alzheimer's disease. And perhaps that can be used as a form of treatment for Alzheimer's disease. So what Dr. Benlin and our group is doing, they're giving the more effective forms of microbes through a capsule that go into gut with the hope that they will improve Alzheimer's disease and perhaps reduce the risk and progression of MCI to Alzheimer's disease. So they're using participants with and without memory complaints. So this study is ongoing, very exciting results from the center. Let's see if it turns out to be true. And then we have other studies. One of them is the BRAVE study. I know Dr. Carlson is here somewhere, right there at the back. Dr. Carlson is doing a very special form of fish oil and trying to find if fish oil can actually reduce the risk of Alzheimer's disease in people who are at risk for the disease. Now, this study is right now being done in only veterans, but if the initial result at the VA hospital here, but if the initial results are promising, I bet you that Dr. Carlson will conduct a much larger national study to see if a very special form of fish oil could be used to prevent Alzheimer's disease. So these are all just some few examples of some very exciting, innovative studies that are being done right here at the ADRC. Now, as you know, it's a large program. We have over 33 scientists that are involved. Of course, the phone will go off right now, right? Won't it? And I bet you it is a, oh, well, I had put my phone off. I don't know how it got on. Anyway, there's only so much of technology I can deal with. Can't even put my phone off. How about that? Anyway, so there are a lot of ways that you can be a part of the center, and you can go on the website and actually find out how you can be a part of a center. And finally, Carol mentioned to us the initiative to end Alzheimer's disease that the University of Wisconsin and the medical school here launched about 3 or 4 years ago. And the role of the initiative is to find a cure and win this disease. And what the initiative is doing is trying to raise funds for research for Alzheimer's disease. Some of you may not know that every dollar that the NIH gives us, they cut us short by about 40 cents. So we have to raise 40% of additional funds to complete a study. And the only way we can do it is through fundraising and donation from people like you and across the state and nationally as well. And every dollar that you give us is utilized by the ADRC in our program to promote the program and also to do research. So it's, you don't have to think of doing $1,000 or even $5, $10, whatever one can afford goes towards supporting our center and the research. And these small amounts of donations have really helped us launch very high-risk, innovative studies that NIH is reluctant to fund because they want to be in a safer area. But the high-risk studies are the ones that really lead to breakthroughs in any research, including Alzheimer's disease. So Initiative to End Alzheimer's is that initiative to fundraise for Alzheimer's research right here at the ADRC and University of Wisconsin.